left my panties at his best friend's place, and then my husband found it. Now everything is over. I would never forget the day my life went downhill within a blink of an eye. I thought I was having fun and exploring what I had not done before. All I wanted was to experience and venture into new things that my husband was not offering. You know, sometimes it's really bad to get married when your heart still wants to explore other things. It's like getting married when you are not even ready for commitment. I made a huge mistake, and now I'm caught in such a fucked up situation I don't know what to do anymore. I just want advice, but if you're mean, I understand I made a huge mistake. This is a long story. Me, female 23, and my husband, male 26, have been married for around 3 months, but we've been together ever since my sophomore year of high school, his senior year. We've done everything together. When he went to college, we made sure that I would go to the same school. He even turned down a better scholarship to go to a school that I had a better chance of getting into, since he was one of the smart kids, and I was one of the more average kids. And when he finished, he immediately started working so that he could support us. And I dropped out because he knew I hated school. He works as a software engineer right now, leaving company unnamed, obviously. Sorry for the long background, but I just wanted to show that I do love him with everything in my being and everything he's done for me, and I wouldn't give him up for anything. As time passed, I went out with him. We were still in college at that time, and he was still razzing on me. He was a very smart man and business-minded, but what I had noticed about him was that he didn't take any ** tea from anyone, and find out later that he was actually a Capricorn. He was smart, business-minded, funny, and kind, but he had a very low temper, and he was very strict. He always wanted perfection. I had thought they were playing when they say, never fool a Capricorn, because their revenge is always wrath and cruel. I learned that the hard way. One thing that I can advise people on is that if you are dating a Capricorn while you are a Gemini, just prepare that your relationship will always have very serious ups and downs, because a Gemini has their own short temper, and Capricorn also. But the Capricorn always wants to have an upper hand. They lead, so as the Gemini, you will have to understand that and thread carefully. Because once you do them wrong, you would have poured gas or paraffin on an already blazing devil's fire. Ask me, I know how it's like to date and even get married to a Capricorn while you are a Gemini. So I'm talking from experience. Anyway, Dominic, my husband, was really romantic and loving. He knew how to treat a woman like a queen. So we continued going out. He showered me with so much love and gifts. The way I was falling harder and harder for him every day, I eventually found myself like I was possessive over him, or obsessed, I don't know. I would get angry if he was not answering my calls, or he would come to have one of his meetings in a cafe with a woman. Was I being obsessive or possessive over the poor guy? Time passed and he had confessed his feelings for me, but I kept turning him down and preferred having only a friendship relationship because I had thought I was not the type of girl he would want to be with. 2. I was afraid of telling him about my job as a stripper and sex worker to get money. I just couldn't tell him what I was doing for a living except for the fact that I was working at a cafe, which he knew since we first met there. I was ashamed of my second job, and on the other hand, I had fallen for the guy, but I was doubting myself. I stay at home and take care of the typical cleaning and cooking and house maintenance, so we have a good relationship and we both put in a lot of work to make sure things stay afloat. Before I get into this, I should say that my physical attraction to him wasn't the same as when we were in college. Ever since he started working, he started to work out less and doesn't come to the gym with me as often. He's not fat or anything, but it's obvious he doesn't have as much muscle, and the things he had early in college, like his six-pack, which he knows I used to love, are long gone. Maybe less working out reduced his testosterone also, because the sex isn't as frequent, and when we have it, it's not like it used to be. Starting a couple of months ago, one of his better friends that I will call Tom, male 25, started coming over to hang out. Usually I don't like his friends in our place so frequently, but me and Tom instantly clicked. Tom and I hit it off, and my husband was so happy to see that I finally got along with his friends. But then, as usual, he ended up going back to work and spending less and less time with me, which honestly might have been one of the reasons I cheated. When we were about to get married, he promised me we wouldn't fall out of touch like in the movies and that he wouldn't abandon me for work. But that's exactly what I feel like happened. Tom started swinging a couple of hours before my husband got home to wait for him comfortably, so we started hanging out. We did everything together that I felt like my husband should have taken the time to do with me. We binged Netflix, talked about so much, went out to movies. Whenever people saw us, they said I looked happier. And at that point, I think you was. Tom started swinging by to hang out with me more than my husband, so he came earlier and earlier, and soon it was just at the beginning of the day, as long as he didn't have class. He's working on his master's. My husband was very boring and always busy with work to a point that he didn't even try to make time for me. As his wife, it would always be either his work or gone to business trips that take months for him to come back. So I am young and still beautiful, so I thought, why not try what I had been missing out ever since I got married? Well, my work history is not too good, so some might know what I mean when I say some old habits die hard. One morning when he came by and we started to binge Netflix, I didn't have as much clothes on as usual because he came at like 9, which was slightly earlier than expected, but I was already so comfortable with him it didn't matter. I only had a big shirt on and some underwear, and I didn't even realize until it was too late that I wasn't wearing a bra, so I felt awkward. Then Tom, as a joke, took off his clothes and only had a shirt and his boxers and climbed into bed next to me saying it was undies time. And he was abnormally close, but I ended up moving in even closer. He put his hand on my thigh and I ended up moving to sit in between his legs, and before I even thought about it, he turned me around and he started grinding an erection onto me and I kissed him. I didn't intend for it to go further than that, but he was everything that my husband wasn't anymore. He was still built, and I could tell he really wanted me more than my own husband had, so we ended up having sex. I trusted him, of course, so we never used protection. Throughout that day, and he gave me the opportunity to feel ways and do things I hadn't done in so long. I thought I would feel bad right after, but I didn't. I was only really excited that I was desired and wanted and satisfied again. Me and Tom continued this relationship for months, and I ended up giving him the nickname Hubby, because I really felt like he was my true husband the way he treated me. But of course, he started to get possessive like men do, and this is where the huge problems began. Whenever we had sex, he wanted my wedding ring off, and I ended up losing it, and my husband immediately noticed because I made a point of never having it off. But that was only the first thing. Tom told me to stop kissing my husband or really treating him like he was my husband at all. And I did it, and I treated my husband like shit because he manipulated me into believing he was a shitty husband in person for leaving me so alone. I went back on birth control and we never used protection because he didn't like it. And I never objected because I just enjoyed the feeling of being taken again. So one day I received a call from Tom, one of my husband's friends, the one who loved sex. I was surprised because he hadn't called me ever since the day we last saw each other. He asked me to meet him at his house, which was not far from my matrimonial home, for a quick one, of which I bluntly refused and reminded him that I was no longer into that life and I was happily married. I said that to get him off my back and hoped that maybe he would get the message even though I was not really happy. It had been quite some time since things had been tense in my matrimonial house. My husband was acting fishy, like there was something he was hiding from me. At first I had thought it was work pressure, but things got worse. He was suddenly moody. His sex drive was no longer the same. As much as he acted like he didn't love our daughter, yes, we had a child, a daughter to be precise, or even tried to play with her, but that was a small thing compared to how he was acting towards me alone. So Tom just laughed at me when I told him that I was happily married, and he told me that if I was happily married, I would have acted like a happy person when they had come to my husband, Dominic's celebratory bride. I first didn't understand what he was trying to imply, but I somehow remembered that he was the only client that knew me at my happiest, or when I was pretending to be happy. He told me to know my worth, and if the battle that I was trying to win with Dominic was worth it, and how long would I keep fighting for something and someone who couldn't even steal a glance at me when they were in my house. What he was saying was true, but I couldn't give him that satisfaction just because my husband had changed on me. I still had faith that he would be back to be the person he was when we first started dating. My marketing company on the other side was doing well. It was the best destruction I had. Time passed, I decided to start going out to live a little, I had never got time to all that and enjoy my money because I had to think of the situation that I was facing at home. So I started by going to the mall to do some shopping, hoping that it would cheer me up just like all the girls who say shopping was a great therapy. But for me, it wasn't. I won't lie. My husband knew that I was the lover of affection and intimacy, but the way he was acting made me somehow feel frustrated and in so much desire for intimacy. Though I didn't want to do that to my husband because it was going to jeopardize my marriage, I couldn't hold myself anymore to the point that I would sometimes help myself. So when I went shopping, I bought a lot of lingerie, hoping that they would bring at least a small spark to my husband's eyes when he sees me wearing a sexy number. So when I got home, I prepared his favorite dish. Luckily, I had gotten my daughter a nanny because of work, and I was kind of tired of burdening my mother with my problems. My husband came back earlier than expected that day. The nanny and my daughter were at my mother's house, so I tried acting like a good wife and welcomed my husband with a kiss and asked him to go take a quick shower because we needed to talk. Luckily, he complied and did as instructed, while I was left to finish up everything. I made sure to wear something sexy that would make him want to eat me in an instant. When he came back from taking a shower, he came down the stairs and asked what the occasion was and where I was going since I was wearing a dress that he had not seen before. I told him that I had wanted to spend quality time with him and tried addressing the issue that we were facing in our marriage. But the guy just dismissed my concerns and changed the topic. I asked him to at least notice me as his wife. I then tried seducing him, but he was not having it. He complained about being tired, and what surprised me that day was that he asked where Chrissy, our daughter, was. I knew he didn't ask that because he wanted to ask, but it was because he wanted to dismiss what I was trying to do and address it with him. So I told him that our daughter was at my mother's house. He just took the car keys and told me that a child shouldn't be separated from their mother because that would break the connection and the bond we had, so he was going to fetch her. I didn't really understand the sudden love he had for our daughter, but somehow my heart was happy and at ease to see him considering our daughter's feelings. I had hopes that maybe we would get through everything, but who was I fooling? He left me there with the lingerie on. He didn't even try to at least compliment or show me some affection. He just remembered that he had a daughter that he had been absent with for a year. My heart was broken and I was so thirsty and hungry for some intimacy, so I found myself calling Tom with the hope that he was available. Luckily, he had invited me to their private party because I had told him that I was bored and I needed some company. I didn't even waste any time. I just changed only the dress that I was wearing, then went to the location that Tom had sent. I didn't care if my husband would come back home and not find me. All I was thinking about was the salt and desire for affection that I had been craving for. When I got there, Tom welcomed me and introduced me as his fun girl, which came as a huge shock to me because I didn't remember forming any fun relationship with Tom. But I dismissed that, but maybe we did have a fun relationship which happened a long time ago. So the night went on, and at that party I noticed a few of Dominic's friends. Someone suggested that we all play Spin the Bottle, where one would either kiss the person the bottle would be pointed to, or you would have a shot of vodka. That game was fun and all. I had kissed 3 of Dominic's friends, including Tom. As the game was getting heated, someone changed it and told us to play Truth or Dare. I tried containing myself by choosing truths, but Tom asked if I was truly happy and sexually satisfied in my marriage. That question caught me by surprise because I didn't know how to answer, and I couldn't lie because they would see that I was lying. I was getting uncomfortable, so I changed the answer I had given them and chose Dare. Tom then dared me to go to one of the rooms in the house with a guy called Kenny for 15 minutes. He looked like he had been craving for me the whole night. I was resistant at first because I didn't know what I was supposed to do in that room, but I eventually went with the guy. When we got there, the guy started touching me. Mind you, I was also tipsy, so the alcohol was playing its role on my body, so it reacted to his touch and smooth words he kept saying. Within a blink of an eye, I found myself going down with the guy. My mind had flushed down any thoughts of my marriage problems and my husband. I was enjoying the moment. My mind took me back to where and who I was before getting married and having a whole family. Not knowing that the room we were in actually had cameras, I was so caught up in a moment to a point that I didn't notice anything, plus the alcohol was doing its work. The game went on until late, and the real fun started when everyone was dancing. I was really sloshed to the point that I found myself dancing like a stripper on top of the table. I did the dance for 3 of the guys who included Tom, Kenny, and the one that used to come to the strip club for my dance. I was letting loose and cared less. Little did I know that they were actually my husband's friends. Well, I knew the 2, but I didn't know about Kenny. So as I was busy dancing, I told the guys to follow me to the private room. My stripping habits had come back on full mode, and we were all drunk, so I commanded them to follow me to the room, and they complied. When we got there, we started our little party. I danced for them and seduced them to a point that Tom and Kenny started touching me, and boom, we were having a threesome. I was enjoying the way that they were touching me and making me feel good. I don't remember where the other guy had gone, and I didn't care, so I continued with the fun I was having with 2 of these guys. We did a lot the previous night. We were all sloshed to a point that I couldn't remember everything that had taken place in the private room, though I remembered bits of what had happened. I woke up in the morning with a very serious hangover headache. When I looked at myself, I saw that I was not wearing anything. My heart started beating, thinking of the worst and thinking of how stupid I was for putting my marriage in jeopardy. I had committed adultery, something I had vowed to myself to never do again. I was so scared, thoughts were racing in my head. I couldn't help but feel guilty of what I had done, and there was no undoing it. As I was busy panicking, Tom came into the room with a cup of coffee and painkillers to kill the hangover headache. As much as I wanted to appreciate his kind gesture, my heart and my mind didn't allow me to. It was on its own dimension and a very dark one. I just couldn't stay there anymore, so I only took the painkillers and drank them before rushing home. On the other hand, Tom was acting very possessive over me. He was acting like a jealous and obsessed lover. The following morning, he was super angry at me, telling me that I had acted like a body seller in front of his friends, and the fact that I allowed alcohol to rule me. He said a lot of things that made me think that maybe Tom had thought that what we were doing or what we had was serious and was going somewhere, while I knew very well that I loved my husband to death. But his ignorant demeanor had led me to do what I did with Tom. That time I had decided to go to Tom's house. Well, more like he decided. I was so submissive when it came to him. I really don't know what was happening to me because I was not a submissive person, but Tom managed to make me a submissive person. Do you guys think I was falling in love with Tom's? I mean, the way things were happening between us and the way I was acting around him? One would swear that when I looked at Tom, I was looking at my favorite toy or candy. Though Tom was a bit controlling because he had wanted me to stop doing some things with my husband, claiming to me like I was a parcel. He had a lot of terms and conditions, but I was enjoying every moment of it. When I got home, I found my husband busy with his work. He was doing a very good job, and I was really proud of his accomplishments. I greeted him, and he told me that Chrissy was sleeping, in a very cold tone. I knew I was in deep shastrisk tea because I didn't even notify him about my sudden departure. It was something that came to mind at the last minute. I tried apologizing to him for leaving the house and not telling him where I was going. Instead of saying that maybe it's okay, he just gave me an answer. He was as cold as ice. Weeks later, I had been living in fear and thought that my husband was seeing through me what I had done. I felt like the abomination that I had done was written all over me, and it didn't help with the guilt I was feeling. During those weeks, my husband suddenly decided that he was moving out of the house when I asked him why he was doing that. He told me that it was for the best, not only for him but for myself also. I didn't understand his lame and lousy excuse, so I fought with him about moving. After the whole begging and throwing tantrums that I did thinking he would change his mind, the guy continued with his plans and moved out of the house. As much as I was fighting for my husband to stay because I didn't want our daughter to grow up in a dysfunctional household with two unloving parents, I had some hope that my husband would change and notice me again just like how he used to. But I guess I was wrong. Tom was the only person who kept me sane throughout the whole thing that I was going through in my house. It was really hard for me, so I started going to Tom's house a lot, to spend a day with him. I really enjoyed how Tom would be possessive over my body. The way he was exploring all of my being made me somehow develop something for him. I knew the risks of being in an affair with Tom would somehow put me in very hot waters, but I couldn't help it. I was enjoying the attention that I was getting, and it was really amazing to see someone getting jealous over you, seeing you like you are the apple of his eye. Tom made me feel like a woman again. But the only problem with him was that he was thinking that was my husband, or he would replace or take my husband's place in my heart. He would tell me to stop kissing my husband and doing other things to or with my husband. Stupid me, I obeyed the nonsense that he was saying. I don't know if his big tool had taken my mind, but I don't know why I was so submissive to Tom. I stopped kissing my husband. I put as much distance between us in bed as possible, and I made a point to never have sex with him no matter what. I called him fat and ugly when I got angry or was upset, and it just sent my marriage into ruins. Tom was still around, and I guess my husband realized how lovey-dovey I was with Tom because he started making accusations. And of course, Tom got possessive again. So when my husband told him he couldn't come over anymore, he sent my husband months' worth of the pictures and videos and messages we had made and sent each other as some kind of sick payback. When my husband got home, he was infuriated and he screamed and threw things, and I had no idea what to do. And I realized that Tom didn't really care about me as much as my husband did if he was willing to expose me like that. He started yelling about how hard he was working as if I didn't help around the house, and he broke a lot of my personal items. He was crying in the corner and talking about how he wanted to murder himself, and I was so scared because he randomly kept lashing out again. He kept asking me questions, half yelling, half crying about how often and how long it had been going on, and I broke down and started crying too, and told him everything. I knew there and then that my marriage was hanging on a very high and dangerous cliff. You know when you get that feeling that tells you that everything you had worked hard for was about to go south instead of north side? That was what I had felt, and I couldn't even blame anyone for it. About a week after he had moved out, a delivery guy had come to the house stating that he had come to deliver the parcel. When I asked who had sent it, he told me what all other delivery guys usually say, "I don't know, man, I'm just a delivery guy." My conscience told me that maybe it was something from my business clients. Little did I know that it was actually divorce papers and another paper that stated that Dominic was taking full custody of Chrissy. He looked at the videos on his phone getting angry again because I told Tom I loved him and that he was better than my husband and other things that insulted him. In the videos, he saw that we were having sex in our marital bed and that we never used a condom, and he always finished inside me, and I could see something in him just break, maybe because he was my first time back in high school, and I didn't let him do any of that until we were married. He kept scratching at his skin and harming himself in weird ways, and insulting himself like I would insult him when I got angry, and I was scared he was going insane. Thankfully, the neighbors called the police due to the yelling, although they took his side a little more than mine, and they asked me if I had somewhere else to stay, so I don't know if they hospitalized him or not. Now I live with my mother and am working part-time again. I regret everything, though I still haven't been able to quite distance myself from Tom, because I think he really started to care for me once my husband tossed me aside, and he's been here for me. Tom calls me wifey now, and it hurts because I really just want my husband back. We haven't gotten officially divorced, but he won't talk to me or return my messages or anything at all. If I send a third party there, he just tells them to tell me to get a lawyer because he wants to divorce me. I don't know if I'll do well in the divorce since he paid for everything, and because of Tom, he has a mountain of evidence of me cheating. I really just want this all to be done and over. As if what Tom did was not enough to ruin and destroy my marriage, my husband, or must I say my ex-husband came to my mother's house and asked to speak to me. You know, I had hoped that maybe he had come to talk and fix our marriage and put aside our differences for the sake of our daughter. But the man actually came to do a nasty delivery and a message on top. I didn't know how I was going to fight Dominic over that full custody matter because, I had nothing to prove my innocence since my abomination was out there. Dominic came to deliver my panties. I really don't know why he did that, but when he actually came with the cops, of which I didn't understand people. It wasn't like I was a dangerous person. He told me that he had found my panty in Tom's office, so he had thought that he should deliver it himself and not send people to do so. His excuse was lame, but I was embarrassed and kind of humiliated for getting such a delivery from my husband in front of the strangers who were cops. So to destroy the awkwardness that was building in my mother's house, I asked Dominic why he had come with cops to my mother's house, and guess what his response was? He told me that he had filed a restraining order against me and a letter of authority that forbids me from seeing my daughter. As if that wasn't enough, 2 days after Dominic had served me with a restraining order, other cops came to my mother's house. And that time my mother was the one who accepted the door. The cops asked if I was around, and my mother told them that I was inside. When they got inside, the other cop was just ugly and looked angry. They didn't even greet me. The ugly cop just cuffed me while telling me that I was arrested for attempted kidnapping of a child named Chrissy. I was shocked to find that my mind went in another zone and left me zoned out. My mind was running all over the place. I was trying to register what was happening and what those cops were telling me. How and why would I want to kidnap my own daughter? It was just hilarious and *T. My rights were read and I was taken to the cell just like that for the crime I didn't even commit. I got out after a week. A whole week I spent it in the most traumatizing and evil place. My mother fetched me from the station with no attorney to fight my battles. Now the tables have turned. Dominic came to my mother's house again, but he was going with the truck. As I was about to step out and ask what was going on, I saw my car being repossessed. Dominic came out and told me that I had no say towards the car because it was bought by him and it was under his name. That was how he took my one and only car. Not only did he stage an arrest on me and take my car, but he gave me a promise of destroying my life just like I had destroyed his heart. When he said that threat, he was not having any chill. He was so furious, even the veins were coming through his temple. I had seen Dominic angry, but the way he was angry that time made me scared and regret the things I had done. I know I should have been honest with him from the get-go, but I decided to keep everything to myself, and when the old me got unleashed, I couldn't control it, and forgot that I was no longer under the pressure of my family, and I was a married woman, but what did I do? I broke the vows that I had made in front of our families, friends, and God, and there was nothing I would have done to save my marriage. But now my life has turned to be the most threatened thing or most wanted thing on earth. To be honest, I don't even know what to do. I miss my daughter so much I might be speaking with her over the phone, but it's not the same. I miss holding her, playing with her, and sometimes going out with her, but Dominic had banned all that. He had banned me from being with my daughter, my only daughter. How fair is that? I once heard that he beat Tom to a pulp, not only beating but making sure that he dragged him with his car before dropping him to the hospital. I couldn't believe it, you know. It was just hard to believe that my loving and caring husband, Dominic, would actually do something so vile and evil. I had never thought that he had a psycho personality in him. Yes, my heart was broken and I was really sad when I heard about Tom's story, but it wasn't as heartbreaking as being told to be 100 meters away from your own daughter. If you had a beard in your womb for the full term of 9, then a person who only donated his sperm to me decided to act Jesus on my relationship with my daughter. As much as I loved and still love Dominic, but he ruined me and ruined my life. 6 weeks later, my mother told me to stop having a pity party because it will not bring back the things that I had lost, including my daughter, but instead it would take me straight to the morgue, and when that happens, I would not be able to fight nor see my daughter ever again. Those words made me think again about life, so I took the money that I had saved from my company and the one I had got when I got divorced and used it to fix myself. I know that it's not going to be easy with Dominic busy making sure that my life is a living hell, but I'm sure that I can overcome whatever storm that I'm facing. One thing I need advice on because I don't know what to do and where to start on my daughter's issue. I want my daughter back. What should I do about this?
Life was fun and interesting until it wasn't. People of Reddit, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Is there anyone who has experienced what I'm about to narrate here? How did you get through it? Did you ever think of taking revenge? I am 29, used to think I had the best luck amongst the people I knew. I was born into a middle-class family, but my parents were rich enough to pay for my schooling, right down to university, so I don't have any student debt. 2 years after school, I met and fell in love with the most perfect lady ever, and then I married her not so long after. I got a job quite early, since I had worked at a big company, name withheld for personal reasons, during my internship days, and they had offered me a job immediately after I left school. So I didn't even get to spend a day unemployed after school. It was at this company I met my wife, Danielle, 32, she was a customer of the company and she came in regularly. Slowly but surely we started to get comfortable with each other. She came over during my lunch break sometimes. We were so close then that my manager made me sole manager of the project that tied my company and hers, that way we never lose them as a client, he said. She mentioned a few things she liked for her ideal man to have, things I tried to model because I was already smote by her. She said she loved a strong man, in good shape and knew how to use his fist when necessary. I was a slim young man, so I started to hit the gym. I also got into kickboxing, not because she said so, but because I found it to be a good outlet for controlled violence, where two consenting adults beat themselves to shit until one taps out. Also, I started to slowly let her know that I didn't just want to be a friend of hers, but that I wanted more. I started to flirt, tried to be charming and chivalrous, and was pretty telling of my intentions. At first she was put off by the age difference, as I was 2 years younger than she was. With time though, she started to also take a liking to me, which was good.
Hey everyone. Unfortunately, basically everyone who is watching these videos isn't subscribed. It would mean the world to me to quickly get out of the full screen video for 3 seconds and press that subscribe button. It's free and you can unsubscribe anytime. Sorry for bothering and thank you so much if you subscribed.
It didn't take long before we were dating, and not even longer after that, we were engaged. Might have been rushed on my part, to be honest. She even said so one day, but hey, I knew I wanted her in my life. Not more than 2 years after dating, we became Rand Misses. When I turned 25, I had an idea for a business and I had started to set it in motion. She supported my every move, and even when it cost money to support, she supported me with the money I needed. I thought I had a gem of a woman. Life really comes at you fast. I made huge profits from the business I started, big enough for me to think of having kids with her and also big enough for me to quit my job. After a few more ups and downs, I decided to seek outside help. Some sort of outside investment or a big name to help me push my brand further. So aged 27, I had the opportunity to be on Sharks. For those who don't know what Sharks is, it's this huge-ass reality TV show here in the US, where you get to pitch your ideas and business to the hosts, Sharks, who then decide whether or not your ideas, business plan or product is worth their investment or money. I didn't go in expecting a bid, but still I offered $500,000 for 10% shares in the company. I thought if I lowballed myself I'd get an offer from at least one of them. Even if 3 of them decided to buy in, I and my Danielle would still have 70%, I thought to myself as I prepared my pitch. Things went smoothly on that day. I managed to get them into a bidding war, and I ended up with a take it or leave it offer of 11M for the company in entirety. Of course I accepted the offer. It was double the offer I gave them and even $4 million more than the actual value of the company. When I got home, I opened the most expensive champagne I had and we celebrated such a big dub. That night, my wife and I were very passionate. I don't know if it was the happiness that came from selling the company or from the drinks. It might have even been a result of both of them. That was the day our son, who's now 13 months old, was conceived. The next day, I went to the office with my lawyer, where I met Mark Cuban, the shark who made the offer, and his lawyer were already waiting for my arrival. In a few hours, every single detail needed to run the company was explained to his lawyers. I also added that he was free to do anything with the company, but that I would love it if he kept the workers I had. Those guys really helped me, and I didn't want them to be out on the streets whilst I smiled all the way to the Bahamas. As that was the last day in charge, I gave all my workers a raise. I didn't need a reason to, and the joy in their eyes and the continuous thanks made me smile. It was bad enough that I was leaving, so I decided to leave them with a goodbye gift. The day ended with me signing all the necessary documents for change of ownership and all. I was paid an additional $1 million to sign a non-compete, which meant I wouldn't try to create another such company and take all their clients. I left happily. My life went according to plan. I worked hard and made enough money to retire 3 years earlier than I even thought. Now I could spend the rest of my time doing things I was passionate about. I had picked an interest in football. I called it soccer then, but now I have achieved enlightenment. So I now had time to watch football matches. I also got more active in the gym and in kickboxing. I trained every day, from 9 to 4. I also sparred with some people who were willing. The bruises and scars from those sparring made me love fighting more with each passing day, so much so that I decided I was going to do kickboxing, even though locally. I got so good at fighting that I literally became the champion of the city. The biggest kickboxer in our city. In just 5 months I became so good that people started to fear getting in the ring with me. I had a respectable record of 13 wins, 1 draw, and 3 losses with 7 TKOs a part of my record. Some agencies tried to reach out to me to join them and to go pro, but I opted against doing so, because I retired from work. I didn't want to go back to any form of work again, also I had a kid on the way. Even though I opted against doing the kickboxing thing for a job, I still kept up appearances and further increased my record. I started doing a little bit of interstate games also. I had taken 2 games before my wife gave birth and I stopped fighting altogether. Also, I sparred with my coach from time to time. My coach was a middle-aged man who used to be a pro boxer. He wasn't a good boxer and had more losses than he had wins. Sometimes I even wondered why I let him coach me. He was absolutely ripped and shredded and was about 3 inches taller than me. My wife put to bed on the 25th of December, 2021. Yep, you bet your ass I named him Jesus. I had become something of a public figure in the city, a kickboxing sensation, they called me. I was just 27 then, so I guess one wouldn't have been wrong to think that I was an upcoming kickboxer. I drove her to the hospital that Christmas. The roads were free, so I sped through, no regards for the law. I hurriedly got her a room and within a minute she was already 7 centimeters dilated, so the birth process started. I sat there, holding her hand as she pushed the child out. It was a boy. A carbon copy of myself. Anyone who knew me would know the kid was mine at first glance. I had a mini-me. My joy knew no bounds. Weeks after childbirth, my wife started to change. I had decided that we were moving to a more quiet environment to raise the child and other subsequent children, but my wife, who initially loved the idea, now hated it. This wasn't the only thing she now hated. She hated her child, she hated the foods she used to love, she hated me, and sometimes, I think she hated herself also. I heard it was something that came with childbirth, child hating. Even though I thought the hating was too much and also unwarranted. She didn't want to be around the child, nor did she want to be around me. I tried to help her get through it, but nothing I did seemed to be helpful, nor even appreciated. The baby started having formula 2 weeks after being born because the mother didn't want to breastfeed him. Then one day, I booked a trip to Dubai as a surprise getaway for her. I showed her the tickets, and for the first time in 2 months she was happy. She jumped on me, probably the first time she had touched me since she gave birth. The trip made her so happy. She breastfed the child that night, and she did for the days leading to the trip. She also had milk prepared for the child, for when we were away. Well, we went out and I had her mom come over to take care of our child. Honestly, we really had fun in Dubai. I used that opportunity to get a place in the environment I had wanted, a mini mansion which had about 10 rooms, a huge garage that would fit almost 12 cars, and a big pool. Was warned against having a pool because of the child. I wanted my wife to be happy, so I made sure it had everything she wanted. I also got a house beside the mansion, a house which I pulled down to build myself a barn, or a farm. We ended up using it to start a poultry. Everything didn't cost much, about $1.7 million. Yeah, I know that's still a ton of money. We spent a week on our trip. We visited places, Burj Khalifa, went on a Burj Al Arab boat tour, amongst other things. The smile on her face every day was something I loved so much. The nights were also a marvel. Sex was brazy. When I say brazy, I mean absolutely nasty. I learned a lot of new things in the bedroom during that week in Dubai. When we returned from the trip, I drove her to our new house. She absolutely loved it. It was in the countryside, a very quiet environment, and a place where our child can grow up amongst other kids and actually enjoy his childhood. She thanked me for bearing with her in the months when she behaved absolutely horribly. She promised to try not to return to such habits. Well, about my kickboxing career, I and my coach opened a gym in the area, closer to the city though, cause I knew it would be hard to get people in the countryside to join a gym, especially since a lot of them already did heavy-duty jobs. I also trained kids and young adults who were willing to learn and paid how to kickbox themselves. The gym became a real hit in the area. Though not many men were at the gym, we had a ton of middle-aged women visit regularly. Sometimes, when you walked in the gym, you'd think it was a female-exclusive space. The husbands of the women were happy that we were able to get their wives to care about their shape. They would regularly come in to thank Coach and I, and sometimes, they also left tips. It wasn't long before I noticed the real reason why the gym had a lot of women around. My coach was French, and his French accent was really strong. Add that to the fact that this man was a 6'3" mountain of a man, who was probably the fittest person in the countryside, myself included. You have yourself a build that women adored and a voice that made them wet. He, on the other hand, found a way to turn his admirers to clients. I didn't care much about that. My initial doubts were cleared and the gym was hugely profitable. So I did my bi-weekly training with the 12 people who signed up and then sparred periodically with the coach. The spars had a lot of the women watching. Soon we started to host fights and charge the women and other people for viewership. Well, now it had been 6 months since we moved countryside and Danielle had now reverted to her hating ways. She at least breastfed the child for 6 months, which was the bare minimum, before she went back to not wanting to see nor touch the baby. This really made me furious because I had to hire a nanny when I had my wife. We fought regularly about this, sometimes way into the night. Due to the fights we had, I started to sleep in one of the many rooms in the house. At some point I too started to not love her a lot, waking up every day and seeing your child in the arms of another woman while your wife did nothing but sunbathing by the pool, reading her magazines. That attitude disgusted me, and I hope within me that she'd change before we lose the love we had for each other. Slowly but surely, she started leaving the house. Which was good, I guess. This was until I found out where she always went when I was home. Well, if you were thinking into my gym, you're right on money. She would stop by my gym daily, when I wasn't around, and whenever I came around when she was in the gym, she'd be acting all different. She'd be acting the way she does when I caught her doing something she shouldn't be doing. At first I thought she'd started smoking again, as she had stopped when she got pregnant with baby Jesus. I asked her if she had started smoking, but she denied it. She said she hadn't had a puff of smoke since we started trying for a baby, which was even months before she took in. She got annoyed at the fact that I asked, as they all do. I tried to explain that I simply asked because she stopped breastfeeding and started going out more, so I thought she was smoking and stopped breastfeeding so that she wouldn't hurt the baby. Guess what she said? If I were smoking again, I'd breastfeed him more than before. Maybe if he had brain damage and D*****, I'd be happy. Yeah, what the actual How on earth is this woman a mother? I couldn't stomach what she said, so I left for the poultry farm. My life liked to sunbathe to get away from her responsibilities. I liked to feed the chickens. While I was in the poultry, I saw her leave again. This time a thought entered my cranium: follow her. I thought, since she said she wasn't smoking again, what could she possibly be doing? Like a reflex action, I stepped in the car and tailed her, and she drove to the gym. The gym? Why is she heading for the gym? We don't open on Sundays. I thought to myself. I sat in my car, just a bit far from the gym, so I could see what's going on and not be noticed. I saw my coach walk out of the gym. I thought she said she doesn't smoke. What could she be doing with coach who smokes in the gym on Sundays? What I saw next dropped my jaw. Coach gave Danielle a flower and then the two kissed, passionately. Hell. Then it started coming back to me. I remembered some of the women who had a crush on him used to come up to me and joke about how the coach now has a girlfriend, so they might stop coming to the gym. I always used to laugh it off, cause I knew they wouldn't stop coming, and also I knew nothing about a new girlfriend. The women didn't know my wife, none of them had ever seen her, so they didn't know that my business partner and coach had been my wife. Well, I was stuck in my chair for a while. Surely this was the last straw. I went back home. I started to keep tabs on her activity, both their activities. I tried to see if I could get any of them to come clean about the affair they were having, but none of them did. Obviously, the next step was to plan my way out of this. I went to the city to meet with my lawyers. He now worked with Mark Cuban because, aside from myself and the workers, he was the only other person who really understood the operations. We had a long conversation, catching up. He told me how much the company was worth now, over $100 million. I was happy that my idea really made that much of an impact. We got down to the actual reason why I came to see him. I discussed my plan right out of the marriage. He told me the whole thing was going to be shitty because infidelity wasn't seen as a reason for separation under the laws in which we got married. He also said that I might have to part with half the money I have right now because she stopped working because of me, and she also helped fund my startup before I sold it. When I got home, I decided I was going to find a loophole. It took some time, but I found one. I opened a trust fund for baby Jesus and put all but $1.5 million in it. I also discussed with Coach, and we discussed a favorable deal where he bought out my share of the gym. The money I got from the sale of the gym I put into my mother's account. That was just last week, but now I don't know what to do. Which is honestly why I am here. I need help, advice, criticism, everything and anything I could get. Update. Well, it's been a year. I'm still married to the bitch. We haven't been intimate in a year, which is funny and also good because I don't know what has been in there and I don't want to mix DNAs with nonsense. I plan to get something though. I needed to do something of some sorts, so I planned a revenge. To get to deal with things myself. During our spars, I started letting Coach win more than he normally would. He would get cocky after his wins, and I would tell him that I was just rusty. In my conversations with him, I started to put an idea in his head. A no-holds-barred match. At this point, I had strategically lost 17 spars in a row against him. Slowly but surely, he bought into the idea. He started to train for the match, and we started to advertise it. Most of the women who liked him had got tickets to distribute to friends. I made sure it was going to be big. The only thing I didn't do was televise it, though I had the means to. When the day of the match drew closer, my wife started talking to me more about it. She'd tell me to go easy on him, that he was 10 years older than me, so he would be weaker. She knew how strong I was, and I think she was worried I'd break the face she sat on regularly. On the other hand, I started to do little things to annoy the coach. I would flirt with some of the women in the gym, especially the ones he told me he liked the most. I would break things, just to get under his skin. I no longer shared the losses, so I didn't have to pay for broken stuff. He started to complain soon. Yep, this fool was walking straight into my trap. He started to get a little more aggressive in our spars, which made me know things were going as planned. I kept up the petty antics. One day, I accidentally drove into the gym. That was $5,000 worth of damage right there, and due to the gym clause I signed when I switched from owner to customer, the gym clause which stated that damage done by paying customers were covered by the establishment, I didn't have to pay for shit. He came out absolutely furious. He was shouting at the top of his voice. I finally got him where I wanted. I shouted, mostly telling him to shut up, that it was an accident and it could happen to anyone. I went a step further and added, accidents like this one and your doping incident that made you retire as a worthless, waste of space boxer happens. He wailed. I hit him where he hurt the most. Don't worry, come next month, I'll show you who really is the waste of space. He continued wailing and screaming at me as I sat in front of the bar. Some of the women came to my aid, asking me if I was hurt and all that. I told Coach I wasn't sparring anymore, that if he wanted to prove he wasn't as useless as his father thought, he should beat me in front of the crowd. Did I take it too far? Probably. Do I care? No. He crossed the line in our relationship when he decided my wife was a sex toy to be used. Said wife came back home later that day, shouting and screaming at me for crashing into the shop. She was in a fit of rage, so wild that she accidentally slipped the already known fact that she was sleeping with him. That was when it hit her. All I did was just a plan to rile him up so that I could get him into a ring which he probably would have to be stretched out of. She started pleading with me to go easy on him, to forgive her, to yada, yada, yada. Pleas that fell on deaf ears. I didn't see the coach again until the D-Day. Day of his reckoning. I was able to get myself up to his weight class, and though he was still 20 pounds heavier, I was certain I would destroy this bastard. The match started, and in less than 20 minutes the match ended. He had started coming at me with all the rage he had. I soaked in all his attacks cause for someone who was a boxer, he hit like a girl. At the start of the second round, I unleashed my evil intent. He had gone into the second round leading on points, but after the first elbow shot hit him at the back of the head, things changed and the 5,000 people in the audience saw that things changed. I pound this mother like a Nigerian woman would pound yam for their savory pounded yam and a goosey soup delicacy. Halfway into the second round he couldn't even stand well. He was staggering around the place, he fell down twice and he wanted to stay down, but I shouted at him, your father would be rolling in his grave right now, how can such a great boxer give birth to such a failure? 39 matches in your career and you had no KOs, not even one. You're a disgrace to combat sports. He stood up and I pounded him more, again and again and again. I hit him in the jaw with my knee. That was the last time he stood up. He fell face first, but I still followed him down, landing an elbow to the spine. I put him in a submission lock and he tapped immediately. I had one. I knelt beside him and whispered in his ear, I know you are my wife, I've known for a year now. That was why I suggested you step in the ring with me. You stupid fella, you saw my fights, you saw how people trembled when I walked in the ring and you thought you could beat me because I stopped fighting for 2.5 years, I added. I stood up and looked in the direction of my wife. She was horrified. The ambulance came and Jim was stretchered out. She made to leave, but my lawyer held her, giving her the papers he had in his hands. I had served her and I was ready to give her whatever she wanted. She just had to go. The reason why I did what I did to the coach was because he had known me for close to 9 years, we were very good friends, and even started a gym together, yet he still decided to lay with my wife. Out of close to 30 women who had a crush on him, he chose my woman. I took a microphone and announced my return to kickboxing to the audience, and even better, I announced that I now consider doing it for a living. That's where we are right now, guys. I've started the journey towards single life. Update 2. Well guys, it has been 3 years since the epic grudge match versus French fries, as you guys call him in the comments. I am now divorced 2 years, although I had to forfeit the mansion and 40% of all my other assets, which meant she got 1% shares of Amazon, 0.4% shares in Tesla, and also $500,000 cash. Now those shares are worth millions and the divorce has literally made her the richest woman in our town, but hey, that's life for you, at least I got my kid. Full custody. I also went back into kickboxing, and now I have an even better record of 32 wins, 1 draw and 3 losses. I hadn't lost a match since I got back 3 years ago. All in all, I am enjoying myself. I'm still very rich, wealthy in capitals. Also now, I have finally found peace. I thank you all for reading this and for bearing with me as I lived this story for you. I hope that whoever sees this and is hurting from a similar situation finds solace in the comments. I will be moving on to other things like raising my son, taking cooking classes and so on and so forth. Thanks.
Okay.
Medium dark skin tone emoji modifier.